Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to Fireside Chat number, I think it's 68. We are joined by, she is a senior political columnist for The Observer, journalist at Real Clear Investigations, and a senior contributor to The Federalist. Welcome to the show, Ashe Schow.
Hey.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, excellent, excellent. So I'm glad that you could come on. This is a time, in my opinion, of celebration, and we had to get you and a couple of, well, we're going to get some other folks on to talking about this, but we are bringing on Ashe briefly. She's taking some time out of her very busy schedule to talk to us about what has been going on with Title IX and the Dear Colleague letter and all of the changes that have occurred, and what this really means, not only what's happened, what Betsy DeVos has done, but what this means and like where we really stand. We try to separate facts from myth here. So thank you, Ashe, for coming on. I want to ask you a couple of questions just to clarify. Those of you guys who are watching the chat, I am watching this on Restream, which basically compiles a bunch of different chats together. If you have questions for Ashe about Title IX or the Dear Colleague letter, please put them in. And if you do a super chat, I'll definitely prioritize you. Thank you so much. So some key facts. Let me know if these are right. The current Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos, has rescinded Title IX's federal power over universities and how they pursue justice for potential victims of sexual misconduct.
Not really. I mean, she rescinded Obama-era guidance, a 2011 Dear Colleague letter, and a 2014 question and answer document that kind of expanded on that and said, you know, don't do this or do that or whatever. She rescinded those. So universities still have a duty under Title IX to go after sexual assault, sexual harassment, because that was in guidance as way back as the 90s or early 2000s. I mean, so what happened basically is that we're back under 2011 guidance, or 2001 guidance and 2006 guidance that reaffirmed that previous guidance. So that's what it is. So schools still have to investigate sexual assault under Title IX. And if you look at it, you know, there's all this hysteria around it about, oh, you know, she's rolling back rights. Well, she's really not, because the culture came along with the guidance and made the guidance so much worse, because the culture surrounding sexual assault is now so much toward the side of believe the accuser, who is automatically labeled as a victim before any investigation has taken place. Like if you just say you're a victim is basically how colleges have been treating it. So that culture isn't going to change overnight, and it's not going to change for a really long time. You already see schools like the University of Colorado. You see a lot of women's groups. You could see states like California are already pushing back against anything that touches the Obama guidance.
Okay, so this is, again, this is why I brought you on to ask you. So this is basically rolling it back to the way it was in 2001. But what do we hope to get? Like, where do we want to be?
Well, she's sending it through the legally required notice and comment period that the 2011 document did not go through. So she is going to have stakeholders, right? So victims' rights advocates, constitutional lawyers that have been defending accused students, victims, lawyers groups, you know, like prosecutors, law enforcement, like all kinds of different groups in to provide comment about how schools should and can handle this, and not violate Title IX and create a new system that is hopefully going to be better for all sides than the Obama system, because the Obama system didn't help accusers. It didn't help true victims. I mean, there was a lot of nice language about how it did, but it really didn't, because schools could still screw up because they didn't have, you know, they don't have the tools, the discovery, the subpoena power to compel accused students to turn over, you know, incriminating evidence, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, accused students don't have the ability to subpoena accusers and say, no, she's lying, look, she's doctored evidence or whatever. And so if you think about the best thing that could happen for an accuser was that the student she accused gets kicked off campus. So let's assume in the extreme case that it actually was a real rape. And so her rapist gets kicked off campus. That's it. He's walking around on the ground, like he can prey on other students. He can prey on her if she ever leaves her dorm room, right? Like he can still get to her. And if he's really a true monster, now we've set him loose onto the streets with nowhere to be during the day, which is also the worst kind of outcome that you could get from the criminal justice system, right? So we're trying to, you've got all these activists hailing this as some sort of like great step forward for sexual assault victims, when it's like, you're just expelling a rapist at the very best.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that really helping anyone? It just doesn't matter. The schools can wash their hands of him. That's all that matters. Which is really terrible, especially if you actually care about sexual assault.
Yes. So even in the case where the accused is actually a rapist, and he's actually guilty, they're not really solving the problem. And more often than not, because the way that Title IX actually existed before, or at least, you know, because of the Dear Colleague letter and what Obama had put in place, it actually lowered the standards that a victim needed, you know, to meet.
The accuser.
An accuser needed to prove, or to essentially get the student, the accused, you know, kicked out of school, their life ruined, or whatever. And it doesn't actually solve the problem. Why wouldn't we just use, or why wouldn't we have just gone with the legal process? What's wrong with due process? I understand that the way that, because I've already seen this since the rescinding of the Dear Colleague letter, a lot of other, let's say, journalist websites, the people who do journalism, they have put out various articles talking about how this is terrible for college campuses and terrible for rape culture and female victims and so on. But why wouldn't we just go with the you know, we have like the law, we have police, we have things like that. Why can't we just do that?
Because activists for years have been saying the police don't help, the police don't care, the police will, you know, swipe it under the rug. They hurt victims. They ask awful questions. They treat you like a suspect. They're so terrible to you. Don't go to them. We need the campus because these girls can't get you know, justice through the criminal process. So they need some sort of justice. And so let's create this quasi-judicial answer that only privileged college students can get, and that the women who are more susceptible to rape, which is non-college students, still have to go through this allegedly horrible process that is now not in any way getting fixed, because activists have just taken the victory and said, well, we just won't use them. Problem solved. And you've also got this, especially in the case of due process rights for college students and in accusations of sexual assault, you have these activists. And then, you know, people like Kristen Gillibrand, Claire McCaskill, Patty Murray, all coming out and claiming that, you know, the idea that we would give due process rights to accused students hurts the rights of accusers is absolutely absurd, but that's what they're trying to believe. They're trying to make people to believe that due process is an impediment to justice, and that anything, I mean, they won't come out and say it, but what they're essentially arguing for is that anything less than a woman coming forward saying, he raped me, and then that guy immediately getting, you know, basically burned at the stake, amounts to hurting her, right? So any rights for an accused student, the ability to defend himself, automatically then hurts the accuser, which we're saying is a victim, therefore you're hurting a victim, which just turns upside down our entire criminal justice system. And if you're doing this on college campuses, why wouldn't it just lead into the actual criminal justice system? Because if due process hurts so bad, when are they going to start advocating that we don't need it anywhere?
Right. Well, it's only, I mean, there are definitely people that are making that case. So yeah, they're starting to anyway. So another factoid, or maybe it's not, we need to clarify. The U.S. Department of Education has opened a notice and comment period while a formal review of campus adjudication process is underway. The comments will be collected in a new Q&A format, and in the interim, the agency will revert back to a policy established under Bush Jr.'s administration, as well as a Dear Colleague letter in 2006, a mechanism by which a member of a legislative body explains a policy and asks for support. Under Obama, the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights issued a Dear Colleague letter in 2011 outlining Title IX obligations. All that makes sense?
Yep.
Okay.
We're good so far.
All right, so another one. DeVos's main objections with the 2011 Dear Colleague letter was the fact that it was not accompanied by the Q&A period from stakeholders. That's survivors, campus administrators, parents, students, and experts on sexual misconduct. Whereas the 2006 letter did have a Q&A period. Plaintiffs were not questioned.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that's really her main objection. I think her main objection is the policies itself, but you know, the mechanism toward changing them is to, you know, say that, to point out that these didn't go through the process that's required. They had put more burdens on colleges, which such burdensome regulations and costs need to go through Congress and you know, the notice and comment period, which the 2011 Dear Colleague didn't.
And I guess the next question is, where are we now with this? And what do you know what more needs to be done? Like, is Betsy DeVos working on something else with regards to this, or she washed her hands of it, or what?
No, well, we're going through the notice and comment period now. I don't know how long that's going to be open for, a year, longer, months, who knows? I don't know right now. I'm not sure if it's on the website. It might be. I haven't looked it up. But, you know, for a certain period, there are going to be these stakeholders. I'm sure she'll continue to meet with both sides of this issue, accused rights, accuser rights, and try to come up with a process that schools are going to have to follow. I mean, I'm usually not for one size fits all, but, you know, giving schools some leeway in how they do things, but maintaining that these are things that you need to do for accusers, and these are things that you need to do for the accused, because they are both your students and both have a right to an education. And so if an accused student is innocent, then you are depriving him of his educational opportunity, or her. There have been women who have been accused.
Sure.
You're depriving them of their educational opportunity, which would be a violation of Title IX. Schools have ignored that, and activists and the media have completely ignored that in defense that, you know, no accused student is innocent and no accuser lies. And so why bother? But in reality, that is the case, that this is a student and they have rights, and you might be stomping their educational opportunities. And when these schools, you know, you see in these lawsuits over and over again, these schools that are just denying the accused any semblance of fairness and the ability to defend themselves, even though that's in the Title IX guidance says that you have to be fair and impartial, but it's very clear that these schools are not, because they fear media reports and accusations from accusers.
Right.
If the accused makes an accusation, then, you know, like I write about it. But if an accuser writes an accusation, New York Times, BuzzFeed, Washington Post, everybody on the left takes it. You know, it's on the news, and everybody, this whole school is so horrible. And so they just pretend that's the only side. They don't do any investigation, obviously, to prove what they're saying. And this is, again, this isn't even a lawsuit from this girl, right? Like, it's just the accusation. It doesn't even have like an affidavit or a legal finding behind it.
Yeah, investigating is hard, Ash. You're asking a lot. That's hard. That's hard work.
Well, yeah, I think there was somebody who was like, it's too difficult to like expect them to do this, so it's like fine that they do this really crappy job. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, really. So okay, so now that this has happened, I was ecstatic when I learned about it. But what are your thoughts on this new sort of step forward with Title IX and the Dear Colleague letter?
It was a necessary step. I never thought that the Obama guidance would be rescinded. I mean, I've been working on this issue for years, so to see there's some sort of, you know, win was not something I was really expecting. But the problem is that the culture is there. And so you've got these schools, like I said earlier, you've got these schools that are vowing to continue under the Obama guidance. You've got this culture that still makes these schools scared of lawsuits and accusations from girls that they didn't do enough, right? Because the media will back that, like I said. So you've got this entire culture. You've got this culture that's just believing that if somebody doesn't like something, then it's rape or it's sexual harassment. That, you know, you get drunk, two students get drunk, equally drunk, but only one of them is a rapist. And it's just based on who makes the report. And, well, it depends on if the girl makes the report. Men making these reports have not been taken seriously at all. So there's this culture there.
Yeah, that's really important.
It's dangerous.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's dangerous not only to innocent students, it's dangerous to these women who are being told they're victims when they're not, and that there's no personal responsibility in going out and getting drunk and making a bad decision, which is what is happening. It's not rape, it's making a bad decision. You're basically saying that nothing you do, is a bad decision, right? Everything is somebody else's fault. And when it comes to getting drunk and doing things like in agreeing to sex, saying that, well, I was too drunk to consent, won't get you out of, a drunk driving incident. But I mean, it does with sexual assault.
Yeah. Yeah. And the culture thing is important, because if we don't start having, discussions, conversations, trying to shift this attitude towards things like sexual assault, the importance of treating rape like a very, very serious crime, and not something that you just, like a label that you slam on people. Because the thing is that despite all of this, if Trump doesn't win in 2020, the next president will probably have an administration that just reverses it, and they just go right back to what it was before, right?
I think
unless we set some kind of legal precedent during this process.
Well, there's that, and also, they said that it didn't go through the notice and comment period, which is why it was able to be rescinded. I think that because there's not really a legal standing, that the next administration might not. But I wouldn't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But that would also be fearful. I also know Congress isn't going to, pass anything to codify anything like this. So it might just get reversed. And at some point, I think the Supreme Court's really going to have to weigh in to say, look, you have to do this, because you're getting more and more judgments from judges saying that, yeah, you've got to provide due process for these kids to all these schools. And none of them have reached the Supreme Court, but a lot of them are being cited. And I mean, at some point, it's got to be recognized that you have to provide due process, and that due process doesn't hurt victims.
No. Well, no, that's those are good points. I didn't really consider that, but thanks for telling me about those things. I mean, it's 3:20. We've gone 20 minutes. I don't have any other questions. I'm actually I'm glad that we are here. I hope that this goes through without too much of a hitch. I know that the like you were saying, the leftist rags are going to write stuff about it. We're going to see videos about it. They're going to use it to talk about rape culture on college campuses and how women are in more danger than ever and all this other stuff. But, we understand that the need for due process to protect innocent people. That's the purpose. That's why we live in this free society, so that we can protect people from being witch hunted. And academics and the academic institutions, this isn't really their place to do that. So this is not how this is supposed to go down. So if you have any other final thoughts, I don't know if there's anything I didn't say or anything that people should.
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot more that can be said, but I mean, this is a good first step. Yeah. But there's just so much more work to be done.
All right. Well, thank you, Ashe, so much for taking the time to come on and telling us a little bit about this and clearing up a couple of misunderstandings. You guys that are watching, please leave us a comment in the comment section, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys on the next Honey Badger Radio Show. Thank you again, Ashe, so much for coming on.